So next up, we have our keynote speaker, Amy Folen. Amy is the Senior Education Advisor with Concern Worldwide, with 18 years of experience in education and child protection. Lately, she has been supporting teams to use evidence-based approaches to strengthen education systems and improve outcomes across the humanitarian development nexus, building resilience and responding to impacts on education from extreme poverty, conflict, and climate change. So the very things that are being addressed in those UN SDGs we've been talking about today. Amy also represents Concern on the Global Education Cluster, as well as various global technical working groups related to gender, education in emergencies, and education and climate. So thank you, Amy.
Big talker with my hands. So thank you very much. I'm absolutely delighted to be here today, although I'm not going to lie, when I was first asked to speak, I was a little bit confused. I didn't really understand why anyone would want a former primary school teacher who now works in education and child protection and humanitarian aid to talk at a Women in Data Science conference. It took me a moment, but then I realized that the theme was the SDGs, so it all started to make a lot more sense. I work with Concern Worldwide, an international humanitarian non-governmental organization dedicated to the elimination of extreme poverty and the reduction of suffering, primarily in fragile contexts. Zero poverty, no hunger, good health, well-being, good education, climate action, economic growth. The Sustainable Development Goals are core to everything that we do at Concern every day. Much like the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, which provides a shared blueprint for peace and prosperity for people and the planet, at Concern we've got a vision for change as well. A vision that looks for a world where all people live in peace and prosperity and are treated equally with dignity and respect. We work with people living in extreme poverty to achieve major improvements in their lives that last and spread beyond Concern's presence. What we do is informed by the needs of the affected communities so that we find where the greatest needs are and we make sure that we work to save lives, protect and develop livelihoods, support recovery and build long-term resilience. As highlighted in the call to action of the Sustainable Development Goals, at Concern we also recognise that ending poverty and reducing suffering must go hand in hand with strategies that improve health and education, reduce inequality, and spur economic development. Unfortunately, as we see some people making progress against the SDGs, what we also see in global reporting is that the disparities are widening, and it's particularly those in the hardest to reach areas, those that are in lowest income countries and those impacted by conflict and climate crisis that are being left further and further behind. In 2024, Concern's mission led us to reach 27.3 million people in 27 of the world's most fragile and conflict-affected countries of the world. We did it primarily through a combination of programs, predominantly multi-sector emergency response, but also integrated development programs, livelihoods, social protection, food security, health and nutrition, including WASH, water and sanitation, maternal and child health, and also education, which you might notice I talk a little bit about today. So the SDG part clearly makes sense. And then I took a little moment to not be quite so intimidated, and it became a lot clearer to me how data science and evidence is crucial in driving everything that we do every day. When ethically and intentionally focused and ensuring that data reflects the realities of women, children, and the most vulnerable, especially in hard to reach and conflict affected areas, data science has the ability to empower women and those being left furthest behind in the most fragile of areas. With the right tools, it has the potential to improve equity, inclusion, and equality by shining a light on disparities and providing insights into what's dividing and connecting us. Data science helps us as an NGO to identify needs faster, target aid more effectively, and model the impact of climate and conflict on all of our programs. It does this while being able to look at how gender sensitivity and gender transformation also impacts what we're doing. What we do every day, it goes beyond just the good intentions and the goodwill, and it might not be obvious when you first look at it, but through every stage of what we do, our humanitarian imperative is driven not only by values and passion and principles, but also by data. From the insights as we design, monitor, and adjust our interventions, to the impact as we evaluate, research, and generate evidence. So, what does that actually look like when we get to the nitty-gritty of it? Let's first talk a little bit about how context and conflict data provides insights to inform program design. There's a lot of data available. There's a lot that's publicly available. There's a lot that's available through various networks like the humanitarian clusters. It provides us with the ability to conduct secondary analysis, to find out where the needs are, to look at the generally what's required. For example, we know that in Niger, the country is ranked 189th out of 191 countries in the Humanitarian Development Index. 54% of the population is under the age of 15. 51% of children who are aged 7 to 12 are out of school. And 72% of the children that are in school are not learning. And they're not reaching minimum benchmarks after 3 years of school. In recent years, the security crisis in Niger has worsened, and it's greatly impacted the education sector. Education's directly targeted and attacked by armed groups, by non-state armed groups, I should say, with the destruction of learning materials, the direct attack on teachers and students, and infrastructure and equipment. As of April this year, 1,032 schools in one region alone were closed due to conflict. That has led over 82,000 children to be out of school without alternatives, finding themselves exposed to the risks of enrollment into non-state armed groups, child marriages, and various forms of exploitation. SDG 4 aims to ensure all girls and boys have access to free, equitable, and quality education. So when you consider all of those data points, it's pretty clear. Niger is being left behind. There needs to be work done to close that gap for the children in Niger if we're going to see overall progress on the SDGs. But what that data doesn't tell us is why those disparities exist. What is it that's driving that disparity? What support is needed, and how can it be provided in the most safe and effective way? Collecting data intentionally and purposefully with those that are most affected at the heart can help us model risk and truly understand the dynamics between that give us the bidirectional relationship between conflict and education and our programs. It's particularly important in education, where education has the power to potentially fuel or mitigate tensions. So in 2022, Concern conducted the first conflict-sensitive education analysis in Niger, which was shared with partners as a global good and continues to be updated regularly. Through thematic analysis, themes and patterns emerged that provided us with vital information to ensure effective, safe, and appropriate response. I'm not going to go into all of the details because I could talk for ages about it, but it did highlight the significant risks associated with education in general. When someone points a gun at you and asks you to close the school, you don't wait for anyone's permission to leave. But despite this, education remains one of the highest priorities of community members. The critical data from the conflict-sensitive education analysis that focused on the lived experiences of those affected by the conflict provided insights on how communities' needs and their realities required innovative, contextually specific solutions. Without this data, we couldn't have understood what was required. Based on these insights, Concern worked with the Ministry of Education, developed an interactive audio distance learning program and curriculum to allow children in the areas where schools were closed because of insecurity to safely continue learning. And when schools were able to be open, a distance video coaching approach which utilized new information and communication technologies, simple things like smartphones and tablets, to provide continuous professional development to teachers and facilitators in inaccessible areas. Throughout the implementation of all our programs, data analysis and visualization, utilization, and and utilisation continues to provide critical information and direction as we strive to ensure that the hardest to reach are not falling behind as the world progresses on the SDGs. All of Concern's programs, be it health, livelihoods, nutrition, WASH, education, or any combination of all of those, are awash with data. We utilise digital data gathering devices to collect both qualitative and quantitative data on an ongoing basis, with dashboards that visualise key elements and help us make decisions to continue to improve the work that we do. In Chad, a country with the lowest literacy rates in the world, where schools were closed for the majority of the past 10 years, it was no surprise in 2018 when we did assessments to start an education program that no child could read a single word. Using tablets in the early grade reading assessment, which is the gold standard of reading assessments in low-income countries, we've been able to systematically monitor incremental developments in reading subskills to adjust programming in real time, providing insights into what is behind the low reading fluency and adjusting support to teachers accordingly. After decades of no children reaching the grade 3 benchmark, the analysis, visualization, and interpretation and utilization of data has started to demonstrate the potential for impact. Being able to disaggregate the data by language, sex, disability, and age further allows us to interrogate bias and ensure that nobody is being left behind. This ongoing learning and adjustment leads us then to use data science to evaluate the impact of the programs against the OECD's Development Assistance Committee, or the DAC, or extended DAC for complex emergencies, their criteria. We look at relevance, appropriateness, efficiency, effectiveness, impact, sustainability, cohesion, and the coverage of our programs. It's quite a complex process. As we do that, we are able to think about what works, what doesn't, and make improvements. For example, our ongoing response to the complex crisis in Syria. It involves a multi-sectoral program that brings together education, protection, water and sanitation, food security, and shelter. This multi-donor program has supported over 1.5 million people over a series of complementary grants. Regular evaluations at the end of grant cycles complement the data from ongoing monitoring with structured interviews, focus group discussions, and surveys, engaging over 400 program participants, authorities, and partners. The evaluations draw on large data sets, as well as financial, logistical analysis, providing learning across the various criteria to inform future direction and highlight impact. This process is periodically repeated to ensure lessons are being reflected and continue to be learnt. With all of this statistical analysis and interrogation, we really do aim to ensure that the people that we support remain at the primary focus of the data, and we use their voice and engagement to challenge and triangulate through their experiences of the most vulnerable. Before I came here, my heart was broken because of the war. Now my heart is mending, and I have love and can read and write and learn with joy. So it is possible. Our commitment to ethical data means amplifying the voices of those that are often excluded, especially women and vulnerable communities. This can manifest itself in many ways, and I've already discussed a few of those, but not least of all when it comes to the research and evidence generation that complements our day-to-day programming. For example, one of my favorite babies, the Safe Learning Program in Sierra Leone. Based on the gap in global evidence of what works to reduce school-related gender-based violence and the connection between literacy and well-being, we worked in collaboration with UCD School of Education and developed a research program that included a 3-year longitudinal study with approximately 3,000 children. The teachers and caregivers from over 100 schools in rural Sierra Leone. The program was piloted and refined, and then a full randomized control trial that utilized mixed methodology design and included 376 semi-structured interviews and group discussions, along with participatory approaches such as photo voice, 42 hours of classroom observation data, analysis of school records, annual early grade reading assessments, and child and adolescent personal and social assessment of well-being. The program combined continuous teacher professional development models focused on foundational literacy development with a gender transformative approach, utilising a socio-ecological model, working with children, their teachers, the school management, as well as their parents, caregivers, and community, and wider society. I could honestly talk about this research for days, and I get quite excited about it, so I will spare you a little bit of that and just focus on a few key aspects. The research highlighted deeply entrenched gender norms that had significant impacts on children's learning, with girls actually generally prioritised to attend education, not because they were felt to be capable, but because it was perceived as a way to reduce risks of underage pregnancy, as well as the potential for future return on investment. However, boys were overwhelmingly perceived as more brilliant. As children developed, this division increased. However, throughout the program, norms were shifted and increased equitable norms emerged as the holistic approach addressed the root causes of inequality and gender bias. In addition, the research provided clear evidence of the correlation between children's feelings of safety and their willingness to report violence and abuse, with children more likely to report abuse and violence when they felt safe, challenging the data that we see every day. Violence in and around schools reduced, but reporting increased. And children, particularly girls, were more able to report and receive support for incidences as they occurred. The research highlighted key aspects of effectiveness and interaction between the various components of the model, with girls particularly benefiting from the interventions. There was a significant positive correlation between literacy scores and levels of feeling good, and demonstrating a clear relationship between children's literacy progress and their feelings of well-being. Particularly for girls, when they felt good, when they felt valued, their learning improved. And when their learning improved, they felt good and valued. It was particularly the case for girls, and this robust evidence that demonstrates the interconnectedness of academic achievement and well-being really demonstrates how we can support girls' learning, what has been missing in the past. The research has amplified the voices of hard-to-reach communities and has communicated the insights and experiences of these communities through methods that resonate with stakeholders that have the power to achieve change. The findings directly informed and influenced the development of national policies related to comprehensive school safety and radical inclusion. The rigorous nature of this research, the first large-scale study to combine an evaluation of the intersection of interventions that focused on literacy, well-being, and school-related gender-based violence, provided a nuanced understanding of what works and why, informing not only policy and concerns practice, but also contributing to the evidence base that will help close the gap for girls and marginalised children across the world. Similarly, our research in Malawi, which focused on SDG 1, ending poverty, contributed to the evidence base of what will help close that gap in the SDGs, particularly for women and the most vulnerable. The program is based on a graduation model, which was piloted by BRAC in Bangladesh and now implemented by more than 100 partners in 50 countries around the world. To date, graduation approaches represent one of the most promising interventions to tackle extreme poverty. It's a multifaceted, sequenced, and integrated approach of reinforcing activities with the goal of households to be on a positive trajectory out of extreme poverty, graduating out of extreme poverty. Individual components will change depending on context, but there are 4 critical pillars: social protection, livelihood promotion, financial inclusion, and social empowerment. What made the Umodzi program different was the integration of gender dialogue at the household level. Gender dialogue engaged groups of female graduation participants and their spouses to discuss gender norms, power, decision-making, budgeting, violence, positive parenting, and healthy relationships over 12 monthly sessions. The research conducted in collaboration with Trinity College aimed to understand the effect of gender targeting within social protection and the inclusion of this sort of gender transformative training on household welfare and well-being. Findings indicated that the total income was significantly higher for all graduation households post-intervention. but the results were significantly amplified by targeting women and also including gender transformative dialogue. This approach sustainably improved livestock value by 36%, household income by 18%, women's economic agency by 40%, men's mental health, reduction in violence, reduction in emotional violence. And all of these results have not only been sustained, but are increasing at 17 months after the intervention. Emodzi helps families rise up. Investing more in gender transformative dialogue reaps greater returns in terms of poverty reduction than targeting more households with what is considered the gold standard of poverty eradication. Including Emodzi generates twice the economic benefits compared to graduation alone, and a return of $3 for every dollar invested. Again, I could talk for ages about this research, but what is clear is that data science is crucial across the SDGs, and it drives humanitarian response from insights to impact. When ethically and intentionally focused and ensuring data reflects the realities of women, children, and the most vulnerable, especially in hard-to-reach and conflict-affected areas, data science has the ability to empower women and those being left furthest behind, particularly in the most hard-to-reach areas. With the right tools, it has the potential to improve equality, equity, and inclusion by shining a light on the disparities and providing insights into what is dividing and connecting us. It helps identify needs faster, target aid more effectively, and model the impacts of climate and conflict in all aspects of response. If we're to move beyond good intentions and goodwill and close the gap of those that are furthest behind, collaboration is imperative. As we look to a future with ever-increasing disparities and growing challenges ahead, open, ethical, and equitable data sharing practices are more important now than ever before. As we look to, as we are faced with significant challenges to adapt to the climate crisis, reduce conflict, break cycles of poverty, and find solutions to the world's biggest challenges. All of us here today come from very diverse backgrounds, and I hope that there are some seeds of ideas that are planted that are not just food for thought, but fuel for action. Action in how each of us can bring our expertise and skills together to help ensure that new tools and data can not only benefit, but also protect the most vulnerable, and that we can collectively commit to ethical data systems, leaving no one behind. In the very wise words of Fatmata, if we work together, we should all be brilliant like her.